welcome, Salman.
Thank you.
So, I really am waiting for the co-host, but we can talk in the meantime.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Any questions?
yeah, so what interested you in this space?
At first, I'd like to say that I can speak 3 languages. So, yeah, this topic is, for me, is important. So, the answer for your question, which is in the title, would be, in my opinion, is yes.
See, this might be a very short conversation because my opinion is also yes.
I can speak Arabic and I can speak Kurdish. And I've started learning English language 2 years ago. I'm doing the PhD in Swansea University. I will be doing the PhD after 2 weeks in linguistics.
Nice. Where in the world are you right now?
The UK. I'm originally from Saudi Arabia, half Saudi Arabian, half Egyptian. So my father is from Saudi and my mother is from Egypt.
Great. So, my co-host Tiara just came on. She's speaking spades. And I already asked, would you mind if you put yourself on mute when you're not speaking, Salman? There's just like a feedback. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, Tiara, would you like to explain what what happened last week with this for this to be the discussion for this week?
Well, last week, we had 2 meetings last week, right? And the first one, we talked a little bit about, is it possible for adults to be fluent in another language? And we were talking about this article that was floating around Twitter for a little bit, and it was basically saying that if you learn another language, then even if you're bilingual and you speak 2 languages, then you're never considered a native speaker in either language, or it was something like that. But the article was a little, there were good points and bad points, or mainly bad points, and so we decided to talk about it this week. I think I got it right? That's how it started?
Yes.
Yeah. And hello to the speaker. Is it okay to say Salman? Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so that's how we came up with this topic. And my name is Tiara. I'm the creator of Speak in Spades. My picture doesn't look like 2 people talking. I promise it's a little different. But this is my profile for the brand that I started recently. So, Amy, did you already introduce yourself?
Not really. We basically just went through the entire topic without you. Bwahaha. Because both of us are like, but of course adults can be fluent in another language. Simon,
Right.
could you please introduce yourself to Tiara?
Yeah, my name is Salman. I can speak 3 languages. I'm doing the PhD in linguistics in Swansea University in the UK. Half Saudi Arabian, half Egyptian. Yeah, I can speak Arabic, Kurdish, and I've started recently learning English language 2 years ago.
And you said that your father's Saudi,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, did you speak mostly Arabic when you were a child?
really interesting. And you're a PhD student in linguistics. What field or what's your special topic, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I will. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I will start the PhD like within 2 weeks from now. It will be probably about the three languages: Arabic and English and Kurdish.
That's awesome. So I'm guessing you have a master's then now, or are you just studying straight through to the PhD?
I finished the MA in Swansea University.
Mm-hmm.
The
That's
full-time
awesome.
1 year. Yeah.
What have been some of your favorite courses in college or university?
The one that was about the capitals, Trados and Mimosos, and advanced translation from Arabic into Kurdish, and the opposite, foundation of translation and interpretation. Yeah, that's it.
And do you know what you want to do with your PhD when you finish? Are you going to consider being a professor, or what field are you most excited about?
After the PhD, I would retire doing anything. Because I'm very tired of studying.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm 25 years, so I never stopped studying since I was 6 years old.
You're the same age as me. I didn't go to school. Yeah, I didn't do a master's or PhD yet, but I'm considering doing a master's program, and a couple of them seem interesting. I was interested in documenting dying languages, smaller languages where there's less than 500 native speakers. So it was really cool to do that kind of research and catch some languages and cultures before one of the big 25 or big 50 take over. And so it's always interesting to see linguistics majors and minors come together. Even, Amy, wasn't it last week we had most of the people in our group were linguistics majors or minors, right?
Yes, I mean, it's more interesting. Like, there's not very many linguistic and learning spaces that aren't just English corners. I'm trying to change that. Welcome to the new people in the room. This room was vaguely about, there was a tweet last week about how if you even if you're a native speaker, if you speak more than one language, you will never have like the depth or breadth of vocabulary as a native single monolingual speaker. And it was a conversation that went a little overboard, so we decided to just punt that off to this week. So everyone's welcome to request the mic and come up here and tell us about yourselves.
I think that was not interesting, that was a great introduction. That's what I meant. And I had a few questions kind of based off of last week's topic. So I guess the first question for both of our speakers for now, and again, if you want to join, just please join. We like more voices. But what counts as a native speaker? What is a native speaker? Some people believe that you absolutely had to be born into speaking this language. Some people believe that if you've been speaking it before or at a certain age, then you could consider it that. Or what is native? I guess is the question. For either one of you.
Yeah, well, for me, I always assumed it was just like before puberty. So like even if it was like I went there when I was 6, and you went through the entire like primary school in that mother tongue, and they didn't speak anything else at home, then I think that would be like native speaking. It's just like I believe that if you try super hard and you do wish to make your vocabulary and everything, and you immerse yourself enough, you can reach pretty much like native fluency no matter where you are in your life. But like for it to be your mother tongue, I think it probably would have to be like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to put any I don't want to discourage anybody, right? So it depends on your own comfort with it, because people can, like, it's in my experience, like, if your parents speak the language but they never teach you how to speak it, you can listen, understand everything, you just can't speak it. And that's an interesting phenomenon too.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point. I guess even to make my question more clear, you brought up the mother tongue too. So I guess mother tongue is, well, not I guess, mother tongue is the first language you speak with? Yeah, sure, Salman, go for it.
Yeah, for me, the native language is the language that you acquire. So if you learn any, like, if you, I don't know how to explain this, but the language that you acquire is the native language. But if you learn the language, then this is not your native language. That's what I believe. I don't know if my idea is clear or not, but
No, that's clear. And so, kind of jumping back to the native speaker, having a native language and having a mother tongue. I guess these three concepts for us to like kind of talk more about my other questions, let's define them now. So this way other future listeners can also understand what we're talking about before we get into some of my other questions. So I guess from here, what's the difference from a language being your native language and being a native level speaker in a language? Because I believe there will be a difference as we're talking about being fluent in another language too.
it's hard to be to reach that level. I mean, to be native in a language that you did not acquire.
Yeah, for sure. That's, a lot of things that I want to address in this talk are related to what does fluent mean? And when we talk about adults becoming fluent or becoming like a native speaker, and even in the past week, I've seen there was a post. There was a person who I really loved the post. It was talking about how they didn't really care about being A2 or B2 or C1 or C2 because the labels kind of don't tell you as much about what you're capable of doing. It just tells you you passed a test or you believe you're at this level based off of what you have. But I mean, there's so many ways to go about being fluent, and one of the things we'll talk about later is what does fluent mean to you. But a lot of people believe that fluent is tied to being close to a native speaker or reaching native fluency, which you see all the time on all social media and in videos. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and what are your thoughts on, what's the difference between being a native speaker and reaching native fluency, and how hard is it, and what are some steps people can take to reach this big goal if it is possible?
I think it's more possible to reach like native fluency in specific topics. So, like, if you're really, really into cars, you can really hammer in and study cars. And and if you learn all the vocabulary and you know like all of the memes and like everything about cars, you can talk at a native level about cars. And cars is just one example, but it's just like I believe there'll be gaps where even native speakers like, I don't have a scientific background. So if I'm talking to someone like a neurosurgeon and they say some things, I'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's totally fine.
Would you like to add anything, Salman? Or if not, then that's okay. But I love what you're bringing up because even talking about like getting really good or becoming more advanced in certain topics is an important way to view fluency too. And even reaching the level of like, okay, I want to talk about this, this, and this in this language, and getting really good at those topics versus believing that you can be fluent in everything right away, whatever this word fluent means to them or whatever fluent means to even us, right? And so one thing that I come back to again is even as you're saying native, like what does the word native mean? Because you mentioned it a little bit, Amy.
Yeah, like to me, it's kind of it sounds kind of dumb, but it's basically having exposure to the culture to get some of like the regional and national like in jokes that is just really hard like to pick up all of the idioms and all of the things that like don't, especially English. English is terrible. Sorry, it just is. But like we have things that don't mean what they mean on paper. Like if you just looked at the different words, you're like, uh-huh. But then someone explains to you and you're like, oh, well, that's a very imaginative way of putting that. Thank you. I was very lost in that conversation.
Okay. So for me, maybe native is some like combination of being exposed to the culture and the language at an earlier age or enough where you're able to pick up the nuances or the little parts of language that can't be explained in a textbook or can't be explained in a classroom. And native can also mean something that is something that becomes like second nature to you. And I guess like these two meanings together can make this concept of native. A lot of people want to reach a point where they don't have to think about the grammar being right or wrong, or they don't have to think about the words they want to use to express themselves right away. And they believe that it's connected with this word native fluency. And I guess it's really cool for us to talk about becoming fluent in another language because we almost can't talk about the word fluent unless we address this issue of what is being a native level speaker. Because I saw it a lot in the past couple of weeks on language Twitter too. And so, I mean, if you have anything to add, Solomon, please go ahead because my next question is going to be different.
For me, being native does not mean fluency in the language, because 2 weeks ago I had a pre-course in advanced grammar, and I noticed that most of the students are native speakers. So they were studying grammar, though they were English speakers. So fluency does not mean that you have to be native speaker.
And that is so perfect for what my next question is. So, what are the differences between reaching native fluency, and I'm just going to use it for now? What's the difference between being native fluent and being fluent in another language? What do we think these two concepts mean for us as language learners?
Can you repeat the question?
Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people want to reach native fluency, but what do you think the difference would be between native fluency and fluency? So, just without the native part, I guess.
Fluency is when you're aware of all the elements of the language. grammar, pronunciation, phonology, and yeah. But being native is not equal to fluency. That's what he.
Yeah, so like native is really just like you're kind of born into it. But I do still believe that if you're like, below 5 or 6, it's still possible for you to be at a native, like, consider yourself to be a native speaker because you're already, like, you're learning language for the first time still. So it's interesting to me because it's something a little bit individual because I'm not going to tell someone that moved to a different country at 3 years old that they're not a native speaker of that country because they've been speaking it since they were 3. So if they feel like they're native, then they're native.
And this kind of comes with one of the topics me and Amy discussed before with connecting language and culture. Because as she's saying, like, even if the speaker grew up with it starting from 3 and might not be able to speak it, if they claim that they are native, like, this is one of those issues where culture and language can't be separated. And I also believe that the person themselves might also feel more attached to the culture and their experiences being surrounded by the language a little bit more than being considered a native speaker. They could be a native listener. They're even the skills that Salman addressed too, like being fluent means like being able to understand the phonology, the syntax, the just in general, the morphology, different parts of language as a whole, and being able to connect those in order to understand what other people are communicating, right? But fluency even has different layers between the big 4 that we study as adults for listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So a lot of people think about native fluency as being able to speak, but there are other skills that we have to build, and maybe some people are more passive. They have more passive skills like the reading or listening, and those two things might make them feel comfortable to say that they're fluent in this way versus the people who are more active or have more of an output fluency too, which, I mean, of course you would need a little bit of the other two if you focus on one set. But for example, a lot of people who take language exams, they might not need to focus as much on the speaking or writing part of it. I know for the Korean exam, at certain levels, you don't have to do a writing section or you don't have to get tested on speaking. I think even for the highest level exam, you don't get tested on the speaking part at all. You focus on the other 3. So if a person is taking that exam and they're able to pass, they've reached some level of fluency, even if they've never spoken a word. And it's just really cool because this word fluent, should it be separated for each skill? Is that something that we can agree with? Like, it should be separated to reading fluency, writing fluency, speaking fluency. What's the 4th one? Listening fluency? What do you think about that? Or what other ways can we express being fluent in another language? Should I say the question again?
No, I was curious. Sam, do you have any opinions on this before I go?
For me or for Salman?
For Salman. Okay, we got a peace sign, so yeah.
Do you want to add any? Do you want to talk first, Salman?
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Okay. We didn't know what the peace sign was.
Okay. Peace, I have nothing to add. Okay, so sorry if you feel like we're grilling you. It's just that we always get very excited if someone wants to come. Anybody in the audience that wants to request, we can also accommodate that. But I think that's why the the testing has come around. I think it's fair as an adult if you don't have if it's not required for your job, or if you just it's okay to be stronger in a certain area if you like it more. You know? I enjoy reading and writing, so it's okay if I just don't like to speak.
That's 100% true, because there are some languages that I have been interested in before, and I'm not exactly interested in reaching fluency in the sense that I have all four skills and I've reached B2, C1 level in it. I love French, and I mean, actually, I have a love-hate relationship with French, because I also learned my first experiences with learning French were from being in a high school with a bunch of people from Haiti. And so I spoke Creole, and they have a lot of similarities to French. And so when I started learning French later on in life, because I really liked French music at that time, and I couldn't understand some of the sound changes and some of the differences and similarities between Haitian Creole and French, but I love listening to the music. So I don't mind spending hours translating a song and trying to sing it out loud, or, you know, I like the listening and studying aspect of French. Can I speak it? Maybe not. But maybe the person I'm speaking to can't sing the 100 songs I spent 5 years studying, you know? So do I lose the right to say that I'm fluent in that way? Like, I could say, hey, you know, I understand songs, and I understand some of the concepts of grammar because of my studying, but I might not be able to communicate with
what up,
voice
Salmon?
message, but
What's
I can
good,
send
Salmon?
text messages just fine because of this experience. Or I'm okay with doing some
Where's
writing
Salmon at?
exercises. Ooh, yep.
Salmon, what's
Hello.
good, dude?
Yeah, bro, how you doing?
Oh. Oh my god.
Sorry.
I was so nervous. I was just like, Salmon, I ate eggs for breakfast. I called you Salmon, so I was like,
Sorry, should I let him back up as speaker, or
I'm sorry, hello?
That's sorry about. He's my friend.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry,
That's great.
he came in a little bit loud. I'm sorry.
You know what? If he's excited to be here, then that's a great thing. I was just thrown off because Salmon. I was like, what? How does he know what I want for dinner? I didn't think it was you.
Yeah. Sorry, I there's usually a little bit of a courtesy, don't speak until you're spoken to. It's, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So
No worries.
Do you think that when it comes to learning a new language, age is matter? Like, when you learn a new language in early ages, is easier than, when you reach 18 and 19, 20s?
So
What do you
this
think
is
about this?
this is getting closer to the main question for today. And I mean, in my personal opinion, I think that it gives you a head start. It doesn't guarantee that you'll be fluent in the future, or it doesn't give you 100% of an advantage to an adult, because again, there's different ways that adults learn and there's different ways that children learn. Some people believe that the passive learning is what makes the makes younger people able to learn a language faster than adults, but it also just depends on the motivation. And a lot of the research that I've looked into when it comes to this topic, they're related to, okay, putting this kid in an environment that's completely surrounded by another language. And it's possible if you're surrounded by that even as an adult, because your motivation to be surrounded by another language and not understand anything will force you to reach a level of fluency that you probably wouldn't have had if you were younger, like maybe teenage level, in the same situation, and you had a smartphone, you know? Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah, I read in a book that a child your brain is more like a sponge that pulls everything, but when he grows up, then he loses this ability. The book was about language acquisition, so that's why I asked my question. So
Yes.
So I know exactly what you're talking.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, sure, Amy, go for it.
So, about a decade ago, that was the prevailing theory, was that after puberty, like the hormones make everything in your brain more permanent and your brain has fully formed, and so you cannot actually learn languages as effectively, and therefore you can never actually be fluent because you're an adult. But there have been studies since then, and they're like, no, actually, adults can be fluent. It's just that we do not have the time that children have to devote to language learning. And Tiara,
And I just, oh yeah, awesome. But I'd just like to add that this article kind of goes on the theory that it's not exactly just connected to language or linguistics, but they're kind of using this like, oh, the brain is more like a sponge when you're a kid, and when you're an adult, that sponge aspect is getting, we lose that. And it's not just for language, they use it for like how much information a baby can handle, not just language. But they used it for the language aspect. And so what we find is that it's even though a baby has this sponge element to their brain, it's not just targeted for language, it's targeted for survival skills or just understanding the environment around them. And so that's the element that makes them more able to adjust or adapt later on in life if they choose to study this language, or if they choose to, I don't know, if they've watched their parents um, like do stuff at home repeatedly every day, they might understand how to do that a bit faster than someone who didn't have parents doing that every day when they were young. It's not just related to language, but in that reading, because I had to do that too in linguistics class, they make it seem like this is the way that children have an advantage over adults. It's not necessarily the brain, it's again the environment and what they need language for in that environment. Again, if they hear it a lot in the house, but they don't have enough opportunities to speak it, but then outside of the house, they don't hear it as much and they're using another language, they're in just about the same position as an adult who's studying the language. And the difference would be their motivation in the end, like if they're able to reach fluency. So that's a part of the newer theory.
could you?
Yeah, go for it. Or no, that works too, you know? But yeah, so that's a part of the newer theory. And also, just in my personal opinion, all of the articles that I've read from college or university, hopefully they've changed and they've updated it because more people have done theses on this kind of topic. But again, for language and reaching fluency, it's based on environment and practice and motivation. Those three things together tend to tell what level of fluency, if we are going by levels, or like how much of a language a person can absorb at any age. Kids don't think about the motivation aspect, but they have one in the sense that if they really want an apple, or if they really want to go to the bathroom, or later on in life, if they need to express themselves between the ages of 0 to 5 to another adult, then that's when that need to use the skills that they've been exposed to come to light, and that's how they're able to solidify what they've been exposed to. So there's that aspect of it's not about the brain being a sponge, but some linguists truly believe that that aspect alone is what separates kids from adults. It's just not true. It's a lot more of a social aspect to language acquisition than just, oh, I heard it and now I can speak it, because it takes practice. I hope it helped.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, you're doing pretty well. You've only been learning English for 2 years. What?
Wait a second, really?
Yeah.
What?
So in the university we didn't use English. All my doctors are either Arabic or Kurdish.
One more time?
My teachers in the university are either Arabic speakers or Kurdish speakers. So the language we use is not English.
Even though you're in the UK studying?
Yeah, Arabic department, we have Kurdish department.
Insane. Well, I learn something new every day. Incredible.
Yeah. But for me, I would say English language is the easiest language compared to Arabic or Kurdish. What helped me a lot to learn Kurdish language was not motivation, but is the relationship that I had with a Kurdish girl. So yeah, after like a period of time of speaking Kurdish, I found myself I can speak Kurdish. I wouldn't say that I'm fluent like in speaking Kurdish, but yeah, I can survive. My Kurdish language is very good, not excellent, but very good.
And I would believe that there is such a thing as survival fluency. Like, I could get by. And that kind of goes into my theory that, well, not my theory. Other people have this theory too, but there is a need to separate what fluency means based on this motivation that I talk about a lot. So basically, motivation is like, what skills do I need to build to communicate and or understand my environment in this situation? So survival fluency, I would like to claim that I have that for Korean, for example, because I'm in Korea, and if I need to do certain things on my own, I can. And those survival skills are things that, other speakers might believe that I speak well enough. Like, they wouldn't think, oh, well, she needs a lot of help. Like, I could do it on my own in a lot of situations. But am I able to have a social conversation for 2 hours about the economy and politics? Maybe not. But there are levels to fluency. Like, I don't think that fluency is just one set standard for did you reach it or not. I think it is kind of like Amy said, it's based on different topics that topics you're interested in or topics that you needed to build skills in. And so I would say that you have survival fluency, which is, I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean, I have it, so if I have it, you have it.
So I would say for me, like, it's convenient when you can use someone else's, like, their metrics for whatever fluency is, but I also am kind of burned out, and I'm like, I feel like sometimes it's an elitist thing, like trying to exclude someone else because they don't have that level of fluency, or just like being a gatekeeper to fluency. I just don't appreciate that. But like for me, it's like my level of fluency I'm okay with because I put in the effort that I can, and I'm going to learn the things that I want to, and that'll just have to be good enough.
If fluency means like perfect, then I don't think anyone can be perfect like in any language. Let's take the IELTS exam as an example. I never heard of anyone who got 10 out of 10 in the IELTS, isn't it? I'm not sure about this, but I've heard that the native speakers, they got 9 out of 10. in the IELTS?
Yeah, I mean, there are people that spend like I'm pretty sure you could, but
following some techniques and yeah, because the IELTS is more like a game. I don't know how, but especially the reading task.
yeah, I think that's what the original article was trying to get at, that like someone that only speaks one language and then dives super deep, like if they're an English major and they study the root of English or like whatever the native language is, and they just become like super fluent. Someone that's been studying more than one language, they just won't have the depth and the breadth that as someone that just really hammers into the one language. But I also don't think it's true, because I don't know anybody that um, that has that level of fluency, that they're not also like they don't have the same level of native language if they're multilingual like that.
It's basically separating the extreme nerds from the people who are just like, hey, this is the only language I speak, and both of them taking the test, there's gonna be an obvious winner, right? But no. So again, one of the reasons why I like breaking down the word fluent is because of what both of you are touching at, and it's kind of the point of all of my questions from this talk so far. Basically, fluency isn't something that's out of reach. There are different layers to the word fluent. What does fluent mean to you? Which, towards the very end of this talk, both of us will talk about our platforms, but, my platform really kind of tackles this issue. There's different layers to this word fluency, and it shouldn't be scary. It should almost, in the future, I hope it becomes one way to express your skills without it being, I'm A2, I'm B1. Because again, it doesn't tell you as much about what you can do or what you have studied or where you would be able to show your strengths in a language as much as you can with the word fluent. And these days, the word fluent has become the end goal, right? But it doesn't have to be. And kind of like what Amy says, like, I don't like the hierarchy aspect of, showing what level fluency you are with the way that systems are set up right now. Like, a lot of people, when they introduce themselves, again, on Twitter or even on Facebook, they're like, I'm at B2 this level, A1 this level, but if someone tries to practice with them, maybe they're not able to express themselves in that specific topic, and the other person's like, you're not really B2 or you're not really A1. And it's just, it's a little upsetting to see. It's an upsetting thing to hear, and a lot of people are like, how do I break the intermediate barrier, or how do I get past the level that I'm in right now? And one way to do that is to reconsider what fluency means and really find those skills that you want to develop, break them down, and say, okay, I want to be fluent in this sense by this time. Create goals from it to make this word not as scary as it sounds, because of the way we've changed the meaning, I guess. Just being able to reach a level of fluency, just keeping it broad without different branches in this big umbrella, make it difficult for people to answer, can adults become fluent in another language? Because people think of it as this impossible goal years down the line, instead of something that you can reach with studying and patience in certain topics. Or if you do want to do everything, then there's ways to get different levels of fluency in the process of reaching that ultimate goal years down the line. I don't know if it makes sense, but for example, like I said, I have survival fluency in Korean, or I have maybe teaching fluency in Korean, in the sense that I've been teaching in a classroom for 3 years, and sometimes I was alone for 45 minutes. I have a co-teacher who helps me as kind of like the translator between English and Korean, to make sure that the students understand me. But some days the teachers are like, hey, I'm busy. I'm going to be in the office. You're on your own. And I am able to teach them by myself. I can make PowerPoints. I can give them the rule, like give them commands in Korean. Or if they need certain things in the school, I understand. I can communicate with my co-workers, like the principal, the vice principal, or just teachers in other subjects if they need anything from me. And I think that's fluency in a way. And so it tells a little bit more about myself and what I'm able to communicate. If instead of saying I'm an A2 Korean speaker, I can say I have teaching fluency, I have survival fluency, I have going to the doctor's office fluency, I have making phone calls fluency. Like, I want it to be a less scary word, and I want it to be a word that's not considered like just I'm C1, C2. You know, I don't know if that makes sense.
So, kind of off topic, but not really. Salman, what is your favorite ways to study?
I would say engaging with people, talking with people, especially the native speakers. I'm a social person, so I have so many friends from the whole world. This helped me a lot. Because you know, every language in the world, so if you don't practice the language, then you lose it. This is the golden rule that I'm following. Use it or you're gonna lose it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a t-shirt. Go for it, Amy.
I was just going to say that there was actually a linguistics theory that extroverts learn languages quicker and better than non-extroverts, but it just depends on, like, because I'm an introvert, so I'm like, no, that's not correct, but it's more like extroverts are better at speaking, introverts might be better at reading. But I'm really glad that you found a system that you like to talk to people, and uh, obviously you've been doing really well because you've only been learning English for 2 years, and you're very, very understandable. So,
thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's amazing to, like, I'm talking naturally and it seems you understand me, which, 2 years is something that I keep thinking about. And I'm like, it's amazing. Maybe next week we could also talk about does language learning get easier with each language you learn? I don't know how to make that a shorter sentence, but I think that's something that's cool too, because this is his third language, and in 2 years, he's been able to get to this level, and on top of that, he says this is the easiest of the three, which, wow, that's great, because I think that English is hard.
yeah.
Yeah, but English, for me, like, English language is easy, so that could help me. Yeah, but because when you compare, like, between Korean language and English, I believe that there are some, I don't know, phonology. So the difference between English and Korea is that Korean language has so many sounds and voice that are very hard to pronounce compared to English.
Yeah, you're right. And so far, the most difficult thing has been the grammar. So many layers of politeness, or so many, even the sentence structure is different from English, So it's almost a different way of thinking in every sense. But, ooh, hello, speaker. I'm so sorry.
You know what? So I heard that if you can speak Arabic and you can speak English, then you have 50% of Spanish language. So I'm planning to learn Spanish in the future after I master the English language, for sure.
Well, for sure, I am studying Spanish. Spanish is one of those languages where I I wouldn't know if I would consider myself if this would be one of those native level things, but I've been exposed to it since I was young. I spoke it quite well up until high school, and then, like you said, if you don't practice, if you don't use it, you lose it. And between high school and college, I studied different languages, and so I slowly lost my speaking skills in Spanish, but that's something that I'm hoping to build again. And so, well, not hoping to build, I've been working on it, and so far so good. But as far as listening or reading or even like watching movies, I watched a movie in Spanish with Korean subtitles, and I understood the Spanish movie, and the Korean subtitles helped me sometimes when I couldn't understand the Spanish words, which that was an out of body experience because my boyfriend is Korean and I speak English, and then we watched a Spanish movie with Korean subtitles, and it was interesting. So long story short, I'd love to like work with you or just in general like practice if you do go on that journey in the next couple of years. But yeah, we have a new speaker. Introduce yourself if you'd like. Tuna fish. I don't want to say. Is there another name for tuna fish? Or if you like tuna fish, that's fine.
We have salmon, we have tuna fish. Oh my gosh.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
How are you doing?
Nice to meet you. What's your name?
Real name?
Whatever name you want.
And I just tuna fish. Please call me Tuna.
Alrighty, I like it. Nice to meet you, Tuna Fish. Your profile picture is a penguin.
Yeah.
This is one of the most interesting speakers I've had in the past month. Thank you.
In the browser, it says Maguro.
Yeah, Maguro. In Japanese, Maguro.
Ah, okay. But he wants to be tuna fish. They want to be tuna fish. Let them be tuna fish, please.
Okay, tuna.
Actually, okay.
By the way, my name is a Persian name. It means peace.
Wow.
I actually
So
have.
half Saudi, half Egyptian. My name is Persian.
That's a really nice name. See, this is, well, going, like, we're off topic, but at the same time, this is a real story. One of the names that I know the meaning of it, but it sounds nice, is Tuna. Like, it sounds nice. Like, wouldn't it be a nice name for either a baby or even for a pet? So I thought about naming my dog Tuna, and my dad laughed at me. Of course, I know what tuna means, but it's really interesting to see tuna fish here. So on the one hand, it was like, wow, but I like saying the word tuna. Don't you? If you say it, it sounds nice. But okay, that's my weird fun fact that I'll probably put on my profile after this conversation.
Yeah, I have a friend, a real life friend, whose name is Salman, and I always mess up his name too. For like 2 years, I called him Salmon, and he was like, finally, he was just like, that's not how you say my name. And so.
But Salman is a nice name. It even sounds nice. My name is Tiara, or Tiara, and it means crown. If it was spelled another way, it would mean earth. But it means crown. But my little sister's name is Tiana, and then Disney came out with a princess called Tiana. And, yeah, it was always a battle. Which came first, the crown or the princess? So, that's another fun story for a different day. I'm gonna cry in a corner now.
Yeah, my parents always told me that they named me after a dog that they hated, but they liked the name. So
so Well, Tuna, you came in pretty much at almost the end of our conversation, unless, you can introduce yourself, talk about anything. We love making these spaces to just, just free talking, I guess.
Okay, thank you. So I am so nervous. So
Don't be nervous. Don't worry. We're all nerds. I don't know if it helps.
thank you. So have you ever been to Japan? I have a question.
I really, really want to go to Japan, and it's so sad because I'm in South Korea right now, and for 3 years I've been in South Korea, and before Corona I was here for 1 year, and I wanted to go to Japan before the Olympics, and then Corona hit, and so I'm right here. And I can't.
I had some Japanese friends, and they taught me some expressions and vocabularies in Japanese language. But yeah, I forgot some of them.
And I have at least 6 apps for learning Japanese, so I remember some phrases. I can barely introduce myself in Japanese, and I remember the numbers. It's interesting.
Hajime So I lived in Japan for 2 months, and then I visited 2 years later for 2 months, and what happened was I had just finished my first year teaching in China, and my friend had graduated from her master's degree when she was studying in Japan. So she was fluent speaking Japanese, and I was really good at reading Japanese. So we just traveled together all the way up to Hokkaido. We took a ferry down to Nagoya, and then we traveled back up to Tokyo. So I I like Japan. I like Japanese. Let's be friends.
He's speechless. That's amazing. You lived my dream, Amy. I'm a little sad. But yeah, no, so it's really cool because I want to go to Japan and I'm right here, and hopefully I could go to Japan this summer. But if not, I will have to spend a lot of money on a plane ticket from America to Japan.
You can every once in a while get them for like $500 round trip from DC. So the next time that's a thing, I'll let you know. So
Wow.
We're about to end this space, but we are going to do another space tomorrow in 11 hours. That is an English conversation corner where we'll ask you questions and it'll be English conversation centric. So
yeah, if you're interested in practicing English or if you just want to talk with us again, we usually have 2 Twitter spaces every week. So the next space is in 11 hours, but if you can't make it, then next week around this time, we have another Twitter space for a language learning question. So this talk is once a week for a question for linguistics or language learning or questions about maybe language learning questions, just anything about the language topic. And then in the mornings in US time, but it's usually nighttime for me and you, Tuna, but at night we have an English conversation that's just like we ask and answer questions, and it's perfect if you're practicing English or just want to talk about random stuff with random people. So I liked last week's conversation, so please join.
What about what? Practicing speaking?
Yeah, so
Oh, I
Amy
see.
is amazing, and she had some questions. Like, just some of the questions are like get to know you questions, or would you rather questions, I guess. Or what's an example of one of the questions from last week, Amy?
It's stuff like, would you rather. Oh, so what language do you like to listen to even if you don't understand the language?
Spanish, I would say.
Yeah, for me, actually, it's Arabic.
Really?
Yeah, I don't understand it at all, but it just sounds so nice. Like, I already know Spanish, but Arabic sounds just like. I feel like Arabic sounds a little more romantic than Spanish, but that might be because I haven't practiced Arabic, and I want to in the next 10 years. But yeah.
Arabic, it depends on the dialect. So the dialect they speak in Egypt is not similar to the one they speak in Lebanon, for example, or the one they speak in Syria, or Dubai, or Saudi. So it's different.
I know I had. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what
Go for it, Amy.
what about you, Tuna? What language do you like to listen to, even if you cannot understand?
I like Spanish too.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm so.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
What I speak
Mm-hmm.
can't.
That's okay.
What I think can't speak so early quickly. So maybe not isn't right. I like isn't right answer. I like Spanish. I like Spanish too. So it is so difficult.
Yeah, I would say something like, I like to listen to Spanish.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. You can say, yeah, you could say even I like Spanish. I like listening to Spanish. I like to listen to Spanish. But yeah, for this space, and especially for the English conversation space, me and Amy, we want to make it an open, and we want it to be an open practice. And if you need corrections, you can say, correct me. If you just want to practice, then we give you space to talk. So don't feel too nervous. Sometimes I'm nervous too, so I don't want to keep saying don't be nervous. Don't be too nervous, because our goal is to create a space for you to practice. So if you keep practicing, then you can only get better, or at least feel more comfortable, right? So that's why we're here. Don't worry. Thank you for speaking, because we like having speakers. I get lonely if there's no speakers. Amy knows this.
Yes. So, Tuna, did you want to reply to us?
Reply to us? Sorry, I don't know. So reply to us.
Reply. Like, did you want to say something? So would you like me to ask you the question again, and then you can answer the question again?
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question for you. So how do you learn so as a language, so you are so good English speakers, and so as a foreign people, so try to learn other language. So how to do it? You are effectively. Sorry.
No worries. Do you want to go first, Amy?
Yes, actually, we have a channel that we have our previous Twitter Spaces on, and that was one of the topics that we went over. But basically, keep doing what you're doing. Just be on Twitter, because reading like 250 characters at one time, it's not overwhelming. And then also maybe get onto TikTok or YouTube and try to find things with subtitles so that you can listen and then you can look at the subtitles and make sure that you understand, or like listen to it once without subtitles and then go back, listen to it with subtitles, and then go back and do that. And TikTok is good for that because it's not very long, so it's okay to like listen to it over and over again. And then with speaking, you're very brave and I commend you. I went into a Chinese space one time and I was like, they're definitely not going to ask me to speak. And then all of a sudden I heard like foreigner and does she understand? And then they invited me to speak and I was like, shit. And so I was like I don't speak, but I like how like I just pretty much we're on the same level where like I'm more of a reader of Chinese. I don't really speak it. So like every time I go into their space now, they're just like, "Who is she?" And then the host is like, "Oh yeah, she just likes to listen. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, so for you, Tuna, it depends on what you want to do with English, or it depends on what you want to do with the new language. So, like Amy said, and I wonder, Amy, can you find that post for one of our conversations? I think it was our very first conversation, and we talked about how to study a new language, another language. But just what I will say is if you want to practice speaking or if you want to get better at speaking, there are 3 ways that you can do it. One way is to kind of write down what you want to say and then practice reading it out loud to yourself and just get comfortable with your reading speed or making sentences that you want to say. That's one method. Another method or another way is for you to talk with people like you're doing now. And yes, Salman, you have something to say?
The 4th way is to have a girlfriend who speaks English.
You know what? That is not helpful, and I'll tell you why. My boyfriend is Korean, and I am studying Korean, and he speaks to me in English. So this doesn't always work.
Yeah, but
he tries, but then he stops. So he'll try to speak to me in Korean, and then after 10 or 15 minutes, he's like, "Can I just use English?" And I'm like, you know what? They said that this would work, and it did not work. But yeah, that is one way if you have a person who wants to use their language. I unfortunately do not. He knows this. But yeah, so another way, so the first way is like writing what you want to say in advance. So what I used to like literally write down questions other people might ask me and then write down how I want to answer it. And then I could switch to studying. I mean, then I could like try and read my answers out loud. That's one way. Another way is for you to do what you're doing right now. Just practice. If you're brave and if you just want to talk with other people, make sure that you're comfortable with the people you practice with. And, again, if you want to be corrected, you can tell us that. If you just want to, if you want us to give you space so that you can just, talk about what you want to say slowly or quickly, then that's another way. A third way is for you to find the TikTok videos, like Amy said, or find short videos, and you can collect sentences that sound like what you want to say. So, for example, I like variety shows because variety shows have a lot of interviews and people speak in natural language. So for me, they speak in natural Korean. So I could see a sentence and see the subtitles in English and hear the sentence, and I would write down the sentence in Korean so I can say that sentence in the future. I don't know, but those are 3 ways for speaking. I don't know if that helps, but Amy is amazing, and she did exactly what I wanted her to do. And there is a YouTube video right there, up there. And we talked a little bit about this big question, because this is a big question. And maybe the talk was about an hour long, was it, Amy?
Depends on if I pinned the correct one or not. I have this thing where, I'm able to log into different YouTube channels depending on what device I'm in. So that's my baby account, Art Inspired by Banned Books. So I think this one was about an hour, but it's the one that is about keeping language learning fun and the tips on how to do that.
Yeah. So, Tuna, if you have anything to say, you can talk, and then Dr. M has been waiting a long time to talk.
Thank you so much. And I think I want to do it. So about you tell me right now. Thank you. See, I have to go. So see you again.
Yeah, awesome. See you again. See you soon. We have another meeting tonight in our time, Tuna. So tonight at 11:30, or I can't remember. But see you soon. Hope to see you many times.
Midnight, 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to remember.
In
well,
US?
I'm in South Korea right now, so maybe our time zones are similar. So I believe it's tonight in our time.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
No problem. Have a great day.
You too.
Nice to meet you. Bye. Dr. M, what can we do for you?
Thank you. I'm sorry for that inappropriate laughter a minute ago. Firstly, I appreciate, I just clicked on or tapped on the home screen and saw this title, and I was like, hey, I learned English at 12, 13 years old, and it was, relatively very easy at that age, especially being in the US and just, being surrounded at school and everything. And I think I was old enough to have an accent, that's relevant, but which I can't hear, right? So in my mind, I don't have an accent, but I know I do because other people tell me. But I don't know, I just popped in this space. I have no expertise in linguistics, but I appreciate that. I'm sorry, what's the account name? Speak in Spades. I appreciate that that you speak slowly, especially with the gentleman that was just here. So Yes. I really don't have anything to contribute. I probably should learn and listen, or listen and learn from you guys.
Totally fine. Actually, you remind me of when I was in high school, the first time I went basically interstate. And like, I don't feel like I have an accent, but like me in Georgia, I'm like, wow, these people have a really thick accent, but like to them, I'm the one with the accent. So I think um, it's not a bad thing to have an accent.
Right. I mean, it is what it is, But I guess part of the reason, I'm interested to know. I know I know that it would be, if I were to learn a new language now, it would be a lot more difficult than, say when I learned English, and so. Yeah, I mean those tips that you guys were giving, tuna. I mean, those made a lot of sense. And it's cool. I never thought about it, but actually TikTok and Twitter, these that content comes in bites, so it's actually might be good. But I'm also, I suppose it would be good. I am bilingual. But in high school, I took a bunch of German. That was never, I took the AP exam, but I never became fluent. And now it's been many years, and I haven't used it. So I do somehow believe that, being at an early age, speaking more than one language, just makes you more intelligent. I know that. Like in Europe and in those places, people grow up speaking 4 or 5 different languages. So I wish we did better with that here in the U.S.
Yes, I think it's more advantageous to learn more languages when you're younger. It sets your brain up to pick up that stuff quicker, but like all hope is not lost. The what you said about if you picked up another language now, it would be more difficult now than when you first learned English. I think it depends on what language you decided to pick up because, like Spanish, for example, is very close to English, so it might not be as difficult. But if you wanted to like drink the Chinese or the Japanese tea, and start doing that, then yes, it would probably be as difficult as learning English. Mostly because we don't have we don't have as much time to dedicate to just language learning as an adult. We have other things to worry about.
Sure, yeah, but I still, yeah, right. I think if you are at any age really just forced to, in the sense of like having to live in a society that speaks a different language, and I mean that would kind of probably, I don't know, I mean I'm not a linguist here, you guys are, but I feel like you would still learn it. My mom learned English starting at 6 years old, and she can speak, she can hold a conversation, but if it gets technical, or if it gets to be too elevated language-wise, then she may not understand. But I think, I guess I'm trying to say that it's, if you're in the environment, that probably, I mean, to me, I don't know, you guys tell me if there is, when I think about what is the quickest way or the most effective way to learn a new language is to be surrounded by it, as in the environment. Is there anything that would beat that?
So like there's two ways to effectively learn a language. One is to be in a very like calm environment, something that makes you very relaxed so that you can absorb it, and the other is to just be super stressed. and like it's true though that like if if it's life or death, you're going to learn. But I would prefer to be in a very like calm, welcoming, friendly environment that puts my mind at ease. And so basically, the if you want to communicate with people, do conversations, and you'll get better. If you want to listen, go to TikTok and listen to topics that you like to listen to. And like
TikTok?
don't or like go to YouTube and find a video on a topic that you like. It's to me
We're
it's
not sponsored, by the way.
Come
This
on.
is not a sponsorship.
it's
That's funny.
yeah. But it's like as an adult, I want to learn things I want to learn. I'm not interested in learning topics I'm uninterested in learning. So the quickest way is to just learn things that you like to learn. Salman.
Yeah, so today we talked about very important things, but I would like to ask you, what are the personalities that each language learner has to have? For me, I would say the first thing is self-confident. What do you think?
Well, if you don't mind, Amy, this is exactly what my space is all about.
It's your
Wouldn't you
time
say
to
so,
shine.
Amy? It is time for this blue profile picture to do its magic. But basically, I think that the key personality traits for a language learner are people who are open-minded. They have to pretty much learn, like they have to have this self-development personality. Like they can't treat language learning as something that's separate from their lifestyle, or like it's really not encouraged to treat it as something that's considered a chore or something that's considered, I only learned this in this situation. Some of the best ways to become, like, to reach language goals is for us to include it in our lifestyle or find ways to make it a part of our, like, everyday habits, I guess. And not making it like a chore, like doing things that you don't like Amy said. It's doing things that are interesting to you. No, not every topic will be something that's like, oh, I'm 100% interested in it. Let's say if you need it for an exam or if you're doing it for college or for reasons like that. But the activities that you do or the way that you pick up information, those things you have complete control over. And a lot of people think that they have to go to the same systems that they had when the teacher gave them assignments or when the teacher gave them group projects. But there's so many resources out there, and the best advice to give, or the best personality trait that a person should have to learn a language, is to treat it like it's a part of their life journey. So I don't know a specific word for this, but what I would say is like self-reflective, because every step is about like understanding what you learned, understanding what you need to work on, and then from there understanding how you want to study and understanding what the end goal is for each of these study sessions. You know, it's a lot of reflecting. And a lot of people might think that, you know, if you're building your speaking skills, yeah, you'll need confidence. But if you're doing the work behind the scenes, what you'll need is more of this, like, being able to hold yourself accountable, and all of these things could kind of be summed up in being self-reflective, I guess. So a lot of times we don't like looking at the mistakes we made, or we don't like looking at our weaknesses. We really love focusing on our strengths, or just basically jumping into things without being prepared sometimes. But every step is like, okay, I did this, how do I feel about it? What did I do well? What did I not do well? And some of the best language learners have different ways to do that. It's not always a consistent way to check their progress, Some people can do it. I personally cannot. I have so many notebooks that I start and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write in this every day, and it never works. But if I have 4 or 5 systems for checking my progress, sometimes I use my phone, sometimes I use my friend, sometimes I do use a notebook, and other times I do a video recording or I do an Instagram story to hold myself accountable. And my website in general deals with language learning styles and also the fluency thing that I mentioned, which is that there's different levels to fluency. There's exam fluency, business fluency, conversational fluency, foundational fluency, just having a foundation in the grammar basics or vocab basics. And so my website, there's some personality quizzes, and the whole reference of my website for Speak in Spades is like dealing with the card suits. So there's 4 personality traits, 4 language learning styles that you could get as a result. And it's like club, spade, diamond, heart, and they all have they pull from different teaching methods and how a learner could learn best from those teaching methods. So a lot of research went into it, and I also have some other resources, a language workbook, but a lot of it is thinking about how to reflect on your own journey, not necessarily about, some people might need confidence, but even for him, he's not confident in a lot of, even him being, or he or she or they, but Tuna, just being able to put yourself out there is a great first step. Maybe it wasn't the most effective. If he keeps doing it, maybe it's effective in one way, but what if his goal is just to translate stuff? Maybe this isn't the best way for him to reach that goal, them to reach that goal. So it's a lot of self-reflecting, I guess. That's my whole take on learning a language. Because even with each language, you kind of learn a little bit more about yourself and how you want to express yourself in each language. Very, very long explanation, but hopefully there was a gem or two in what I said.
No, absolutely. It sounds like you're an expert in this department, and that's awesome.
If I am an expert in this field, then my life journey is going in the right direction. My whole life has been related to like learning languages, but also figuring out, one, what is the purpose, and also just how to get people to get rid of this fear that comes with learning a language. Because especially now, we're going to be pretty much one big community because of social media or just the internet connecting us. Like very soon, having some basic level of language and cultural understanding will be so important. And we have to stop treating it as something that only people with a certain mindset or only people with certain traits can do. Anyone can do it, but we have to train ourselves in a different way to be able to reach these goals in our head. And it doesn't always have to be, I am fluent in all 4 of the big skills. Some people can really shine by doing passive learning, or, there's a lot, but that's why me and Amy are here. I just love hearing how other people think, so it can improve my platform and also Amy's platform to hopefully kind of reach more people for, hey, you can do it. It's not easy, and trust me, there are times I want to throw all of my resources out of the window, but you just live and learn kind of vibe. But it means a lot to me. If I sound like an expert, then that means that I'm doing well.
No, I mean, to me, who's not an expert at all in linguistics, of course. I mean, if you're not an expert, then I don't know who is. But I know Amy wanted to speak, but I just quickly wanted to say that the point you made about the fears. I remember I was 13 years old, and for months, in 8th grade, I didn't talk. I think part of it was that that age, where I was just like going through puberty and like being ultra self-conscious. But I remember for the longest time, I wouldn't say anything unless absolutely required or unless the teacher asked me a question, because I had this fear of like, well, what would I sound like, and I didn't want to, as if it's avoidable to not talk, so it was a strange experience. And yeah, that fear, I mean, that's kind of, I see, I mean, being a first generation immigrant here, I see it in a lot of other immigrants too,
It's better to listen at first anyway. It helps. It just does. So I'm not sure if Speak in Spades, Tiara, she explained that her platform is actually an unstructured language boot camp. So that's what she does. And for myself, Glot Squad is a language learning platform that helps elementary to advanced language learners become better at their language. It basically creates guardrails to language learning. And your question, Salman, was like, what is important personality wise? I think just wanting to learn a language, like, if there's a will, there's a way. So, like, it's helpful if you are self-reflective. You'll be more efficient, but I feel if you want to do it, you really will find a way to get to the fluency that you wish to be at.
To quote the great, it's about drive, it's about power. We stay humble.
So guys, what do you think about another space? And the title is How We Can Use Technology to Enhance Language Learning. I believe it's an interesting topic. What do you think?
If you like it, I love it. That is definitely something that I'm interested in after you said it. So I'm already
because I had a course about the same topic. I think we can do a lot. I've written 2 reports about technologies that could improve your learning journey.
Salman, I think that's amazing. There is quite a bit of technology that does help with that, including Amy and Speaking in Spades platforms. But definitely to not use technology would be a disadvantage, just because it makes it so much easier. My nieces all of a sudden started texting to my parents in Farsi, my native language, and I learned that, oh wow, they're using Google Translate, to just like translate what she types back to them, in Google Translate, and then also typing what they want to tell her in Google Translate, and then just copy pasting it into a text message, and that was impressive.
Yeah, but I was not talking about Google Translation.
For sure, of course, yeah.
Yeah, Ami mentioned TikTok as a mean to improve the listening skill. So this is an example of a good use of technology to enhance language learning. But yeah, Google Translation is a machine translation, so it's not acceptable to.
Well, I mean, you can still learn a lot, right? So, like in the beginning, when you learn a language, like you could, and you're not sure how to say it, how a sentence structure would be, you could just, type in like the sentence in Google Translate and see what it is, or like, in the case of like German, where the words have like, they can be, male, female, or neuter, you can. I mean, it's definitely, definitely Google Translate actually would help tremendously learning any language, right? Because the alternative before that would have been to, I don't know, look up in a dictionary. Actually, there wasn't any alternative before that, right? Because there would have been no way for you to like just so quickly within a split second figure out how to say I'm going to get McDonald's like in a different language, whereas now you can do it. So but yeah, but you're right. I mean, this wasn't what these ladies were talking about. But I just quick. I know it's the very beginning of this conversation. I didn't want to just be rude and pop off the room, so I wanted to quickly say goodbye to you folks, and then hopefully I'll catch you again. It's 11:05 p.m. and I have to get an early start. So thank you, and nice to meet you, Salman, and art inspired by banned books. Your account is very intriguing, and hope to catch you guys again next time. And thank you for letting
Thank
me
you
speak.
so much. Yeah, thank you so much. And just a teaser for next week, I'm going to open it, as long as Amy is okay with it, and make it more broad. So, language learning in 2022 kind of vibe. Language learning in the 2020s. So this way it could talk about both things like Google Translate or TikTok, social media, or apps, and we can make that conversation as broad as it needs to be and see how people interpret that topic, because I think it'll be really cool. So great to see you, Dr. M. And next week we usually start at 9:30 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time, because for me it's 11:30 a.m. the next day. But yeah, please come as many times as you want. I think in general, me and Amy are closing this conversation too. So my last words before we have our morning chat in Eastern Standard Time. Come. We have two meetings twice. We have two meetings a week, and one is for English conversation. The other one is for talking about these deeper topics related to language learning and linguistics. And yeah, it's always a great thing to see more people listen to us, because we're really nerds. We really love this stuff, and we want to see people succeed in this field. And I'm always inspired by these conversations to do better in my field, and also to learn more about how I can be of better help for others. And so it's always great to hear from you, and it would mean the world to us if you keep coming to help us with these conversations. Some of them are harder than others, or just showing support when you can. And yeah, just a humbling experience every week. So thank you. And if Amy has anything to say, I'm muting myself.
Yes, I actually have a specific, maybe it should be offline question, but are you hosting the space tomorrow, or am I?
You are the hosting professional, and I am the co-hosting professional. I am the moral support. That's what I am.
Okay, that sounds good. And yeah, you had promised me you made me promise that next week would be a different topic, but I am 100% okay with changing the topic. But
Okay.
my conclusion for today's was yes, you can become fluent. Maybe not native speaker, but no one should be putting themselves under that kind of pressure anyway. So, have a good night, and wave to everybody in the room, and we will close the space. Have a good night.